Hi, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of the REI Foundation podcast with Jason and Peely. This week, we are in San Diego at a crazy mastermind called Seven Figure Flipping. This is with the House Flipping HQ group and Justin Williams. For more information, go to www.houseflippinghq.com. Without further delay, we're going to surprise you with consecutive interviews with top-notch real estate investors who are with us in this group. So I hope you enjoy this week and have an amazing day. Thank you. Bye now.
Welcome to the REI Foundation podcast, where we cover all the steps and strategies to make your real estate dreams a reality. Now your hosts, Jason and Peely.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the REI Foundation podcast with Jason and Peely. Today, we have some awesome guests. Welcome, Marvin Espinal and Jide Alufa. Yay!
Hey, guys.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, guys. All right. So we always love to just jump right in, and we always love to just hear, how did you get started in real estate?
Jide, why don't you take that, because yours is more interesting, I feel like.
So how I got started in real estate, I mean, my father had a real estate company. He got hit by the crash in 08, 09. So that basically made him stop. I was always interested. 2015, I got married to my wife. And then 2 weeks later, we went to one of those rich dad seminars. And then my wife was looking at me like, what the heck are we doing here? And the last day, they were like, oh, yeah, just pay $25,000 and we'll teach you how to be a real estate investor. And me and my wife looked at each other and she said, I trust you. And I was like, okay, no pressure there. But yeah, that's how I got started. We decided to jump into the program. It was a year's program. And that was kind of how I started. And I met Marvin a couple months later. And we've been kind of working together ever since.
That's great. So your dad actually had stopped. Did he have any words of wisdom or any insight, or was he against you jumping into it?
Funny enough, he wanted me to go into it, but he was just trying to keep me away from some of the mistakes he made. He was somebody who flipped a lot of properties, had a lot of cash, but he never invested in rentals. So when the crash happened, he literally had nothing to fall back on, and he had a bunch of properties on the market. He was actually flipping in DC. So to imagine, the property value there. So it really hit him hard. So I try to, pick up a couple rentals here or there as I go along in my career.
That's pretty amazing. I mean, just from the get-go, I was just talking to another investor about, when do you start putting the actual hard cash, when you start talking in the thousands of dollars to invest in yourself. And you just did it from the get-go. Congratulations on that, on investing in yourself, in your business from the very beginning. That's amazing.
Oh, thanks a lot. It was, trust me, those first 3 days, I looked at my wife and I said, is it too late to cancel?
Uh-huh. I mean, talk about the pressure component of his wife being all right, I trust you. That's quite a burden.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That is huge.
So Marvin, tell us a little bit about your story. Did you meet Jide and then get interested in real estate, or just tell us what led up to that? And then how you guys met?
Yeah. So I started about 8 years ago or so, and I started strictly renovating properties. And that's all I was doing. I was buying off the MLS because I could. And I did a couple renovations here locally in DC, did a few more in Maryland. And then I went out to hang out with a friend who was finishing college. And I just went out to see him, and I saw the property values. And this was in Cleveland, Ohio. And I saw the property values out there, and I was like, wow, I can pick houses up for $20,000 or $30,000 while I'm paying $100,000, $150,000 here in DC, Maryland, Virginia area. So I was like, all right, let's just try this out. So I was like, hey, can I stay with you for 6 weeks? He was like, sure. Yeah. So I just crashed at his dorm for those 6 weeks, built a team. That first week there, I ended up buying 4 houses and just stayed there, oversaw the crews. Actually had to drive some of my crews up from DC to Cleveland, Ohio, because I was not getting the results that I needed from the crews there, and I just didn't have time to waste. So I did that for a while. MLS started drying up there. So I was like, all right, let me kind of haul everything back in, come back to home base and see what I can do here locally. Then I just started doing things here in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. I probably met Jide, I think probably maybe 3 years after I'd come back and started focusing more in on the area. And we met at a REIA meeting that I was speaking at. And that's kind of how it started.
Oh, that's great.
Wow.
So when you were doing these flips, I guess you had a great friend who let you just hang out for 6 weeks. That's pretty awesome. So were you doing any of the work yourself, or were you basically hiring out teams and really systemizing from the start?
I was hiring out teams because it just, to me, like, I'm one person, like how quickly could I get an entire house done? And I had the experience of doing things here in my home base, and I wasn't doing any renovations. So to me, it was like, I've already done it here. Like, what's the difference in another state? To me, it was like, it's all the same. Just the price point's a lot lower, which is always nicer.
That's amazing. Did you, like, from the get-go, it sounds like, Marvin, you already had the mindset to systematize. You didn't pick up the hammer yourself. Did you learn this on your own, or was this from REIA meetings? How did you actually like get started with that mindset of systematizing your business?
So I don't know if you would call it so much as a system as so much as like the concept was I'm only one person and I can't renovate an entire property by myself. So I was like, what's the logical progression? And to me, it was, well, have someone who does this as their occupation. Yeah. And just go from there. Like, that was, I guess, more of a necessity than an actual system.
That's great. There's so many people that fall in that trap, though, just saying, well, but I'll just do it myself. I'll save money. I'll save time. And the lesson learned is you rarely do. So we've done it ourselves. We do a lot of heavy construction. We've taken on projects, and it ultimately gets to the point where if one runs you dry, it takes your energy. It just, and it keeps you from finding the next deal. Because if you're going to flip houses and do it continually, you have to have the process continually rolling. Because the second you get done, it's just, well, what do we do now? Now I got to go start the whole process again.
And to me, from the beginning, it's always been a concept of time or money. Whether I'm going to give up a ton of time to maybe save some money, or I'm going to give up some money to just have more time. That's awesome. At the end of the day, like, you can't buy more time. So to me, it's fairly simple. Like, I'm always going, if I can write a check to solve something, it's not a problem. That's the way I look at it.
That's great.
Nice.
So you guys meet, and now you start off on your journey together. Did you have roles from the start, and how has your business evolved?
So from the beginning, it was more of Jide would call me and say, hey, what do you think about this? And I kind of like talk him through that. And he was doing deals on his own. At that point, when we started, it was completely separate. So that's kind of the start, at least from my perspective.
Yeah, from my perspective, I saw him at the meetup. We chatted a little bit, and kind of what he said, we're kind of doing our own separate thing. We just decided to start doing stuff together earlier this year, but I will call him. It's like, hey, I have this property walking through. As far as the business evolving, I think the systems is more the evolvement of our business, as far as doing things of, just hustling. When you first start, you have that hustle mentality. I'm going to get it done. And, when I spend $25K, best believe I'm going to get it done. So then I'll call Marvin, we'll walk through it. But then over the several months, kind of have system in place, follow-up system, when to call sellers, how to have people walk through property, open houses, et cetera, et cetera. So like you said, the systems is one of the important things to kind of free up your time, and also be able to feel more comfortable with talking to sellers, because they have a process that they can follow with you in your business when they do decide to sell their house to you.
Nice. So I want to actually delve more into the idea of partnerships. What makes your partnership work so well?
So this funny question. I think me and Marvin will have the answer for this, but for me, as you can tell, Marvin is very, I don't want to use the words, he's very stoic. So I'll say he's more of the operations guy. He handles the numbers, decision making. We talk about it together. But as far as people person, talking to sellers, smiling at them, it's like, hey, everything's gonna be okay. That's more me. I'm more of the people person. So I'll say I'm the front end and he's the back end of the office. And I think that helps complement each other very well, instead of having Marvin scream at all the sellers and say, "Sell me your house."
No, I agree. I'm much more detached in terms of like making decisions. So to me, it's, sometimes dealing with sellers in the craziness that they present, it's kind of like, well, it's a simple solution. In my head, it's like, this is so simple, do X, Y, or Z, and you've got this. And to them, it's like, it's not that. Like, it's this whole other gamut of, I've got this going on and this going on and this going on. And to me, it's like, well, yeah, but these are all symptoms of this one cause. If you fix the cause, and everything else goes away. So I think, and I guess a little bit of my background before that is because I thought I was going to be a physical therapist, get my doctorate of physical therapy. So to me, it's all about like, this is the linear progression of something, and it's either progression or regression. And so to me, like Jide say, it's a little bit more like stoic, a little bit more detached in terms of decision making. And sometimes it doesn't, with certain personalities on the seller side, it doesn't always mesh well. So. Wow.
I mean, it just, your partnership sounds so great. You have the yin and yang, you have the complete balance. That's awesome. And that's awesome. I mean, even in your personalities, like you could tell, like you guys like click. It's awesome.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your business today. Where are you with your business, and where's your focus?
So our main focus really is around wholesaling. We'll do a couple of renovations here or there that are either a hotel type thing just because of the ease of it. And because of the market that we're in, it's very competitive. I'm assuming everywhere else, anything you put on the MLS, it's going to go in a couple of days. On the investor side, on the retail side, we're a handful of rehabs here or there that really make sense, areas we're really comfortable with or that need minimal work. We're not really into the whole like tear down, rebuild, or complete gut or anything along those lines. For us, the way we look at it's a lot of the time versus money thing. And to me, it's like, if I can get in and out of a project in 30 to 45 days and have it on the market, I'd much rather do that, especially just because, there's a lot of unforeseen factors when you're dealing on the top end when you're going retail. So a main thing right now is wholesaling, with some like wholesaling sprinkled in, as well as some rehabs.
Nice.
That's great.
Nice. Do you have anything to add, Jide?
Yeah, basically what he said, like we were talking about it earlier, how in our market, and each market is specific depending on the size and the activity, wholesaling and rehabbing might or might not make sense, the extra risk for the return. So like Marvin said, we look at, if we're going to wholesale, X amount is what we're going to make. If we flip it ourselves, we might make an extra 5 or 10 grand, but is that really worth the extra risk and the time that we're going to put into it? So we're more so sticking with the wholesale model. And like he said, a couple of hotels in between, just because that's what makes sense for us in the market that we're in.
That's all amazing information. I mean, especially in the HGTV world and age where they think like even newer flippers will come in and think, okay, well, I have to do this huge project, when really you can get into the market. Time versus money. Like really everybody who's listening to this, think of time versus money. And the only reason why I'm pointing this out is because Jason and I, we do huge flips. We add square footage. Our market calls for it, at least the markets that we've been in. Yeah. Buy at a high price point. And in order to add value to that price point, we need to add square footage. That's the way we make our money.
And that's the other thing
makes sense, but time versus money. That doesn't make sense anymore.
And that's the other thing is that some people, going on what you're saying, the HD model is that they try to repair something.
Yeah.
And you've got to look at the comps and like, hey, what does this finished product look like? And what did it sell for? What was the days on market for it to go under contract? Did it ever fall out? And kind of like, look, because at the end of the day, like I'm trying to work backwards. Someone already solved this problem. They got these many houses sold, and this is the finished product in this area. This is the standard. I'm going to work backward from there and give the normal.
Perfect. Standard and normal. Yeah. It's great advice.
But here's the thing is like for certain people, like they are on the higher end of the market. Like that's where their cup of tea is. That's their niche. For us, we've just found like what's the standard median sales price? That's where we want to be. Because for us, there's a bigger buyer pool.
Yeah, exactly right. What's a part of your business now that you're putting more time in to improve?
That's a good question. I feel like you're always trying to improve everything at all times. That's what I guess makes that entrepreneurial mind. I think what we're trying to improve or tweak in our system is just the conversion ratio. If we can get more bang for the leads that we're getting now, that'll be the best. So me and Marvin constantly go through every step of our process, from sending out postcards of marketing to when we get calls, how we talk to the sellers, what kind of scripts we're using. So we're trying to tweak and get more bang and more conversions for the marketing money we're spending now. So kind of optimizing everything we're doing.
So talking about your systems, what's a part of your systems that you're like the most proud of? Something that you can share with our audience?
Really, Followup. A lot of investors tell me that Followup is the name of the game, and it really is. Yeah. So we have Followup systems in place to reach out to a seller up to a year. And even after that, we have it automatized with our CRM system. So they get calls, text message, voicemails from us. But even after that, 2-3 months if I haven't heard from you, I will personally write a letter to you and say, hey, I haven't heard from you in a while. And we've had so many leads come back through the door because they got a letter, even though they're already getting the texts and the emails and the voice messages. Just that letter with a signature, they give us a call and we're like, okay, great, just sign here. And then we're always thinking, why didn't you just sign 2 months ago? But yeah, just
sometimes it takes us 2 months.
Yep.
And that letter, that's crazy. I mean, just the personal touch that you guys put on that. I mean, come on, listeners, if you're listening to this, it's the personal touch that counts. I know a lot of people out there are trying to systematize their businesses and they're like, okay, sitting down and writing a letter, that just takes too much time. What's 10 minutes for another, $10,000?
Right.
But people will hold on to that letter and they'll sit there, and it's amazing the calls you get. I've held on to this letter for 6-8 months and I wasn't ready before, but now I'm thinking I'm ready to sell. And when they have that letter from you and you have that consistency played in, that's where the listeners can really find value in what you're saying. So yeah, thank you.
And the thing is, like, some people have different forms of communication. Like some people love talking on the phone, and they'll respond to a voicemail. Some people will get a voicemail and they won't respond, but then you send them a text and they'll respond to that. And some people do it email, and it's like trying to decipher what method of communication do you prefer, and then trying to just respond to them in that fashion is something that we've learned a little bit through trial and error thus far. And like some people, they still want, an actual letter in the mail, and that's how they respond to you. So it's just figuring that out, and everyone's different. So you kind of just have to cover all your bases, or just be okay with niching into that one thing, and you hit that hard and hope that the people you're contacting are going to fall within that method of communication.
That's so true.
Could you give us a little bit of a taste of what your Followup system looks like?
Yeah. Do you want me to take this, or you want to do it?
Yeah, you can go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm a caller.
Yeah.
You call me, I call you back. I'm like, oh, what's up?
Yeah. So call comes in, answered live by our intake person, get basic information. Then from there, it's about setting the appointment. We go out there and we're going to try to close the deal if it makes sense for everyone right there on the spot. For whatever reason, it isn't the right time for them. We'll follow up with them a couple of days later. And if it's not makes sense and they're looking like, hey, I was just trying to feel this out, and now I'm looking at 30 to 60 days or what have you. Because of our CRM, we put them into the follow system. They get a text from us a week later, and they'll get a voicemail from us. Then they'll get an email, and that cycle just kind of progresses throughout the year. And then sporadically email or postcards get sent. And then the final thing is kind of what Jide said, that he'll write a letter to them personally, sign it, and then they'll get that.
Yeah, and just to add to what Marvin says, so, we talked about that time versus money thing. What we do is that we kind of make a list of our highest possibilities or our highest paydays. And those are the people that we specifically target for that letter. If there was somebody who had 1K worth of equity, I might not be writing a letter to them. But if they had 50% equity, they seem motivated, it just wasn't the right time, those people would get on my list, and I'll say, okay, I'm going to send you a letter in 3 months if I hadn't heard from you. And I always put in my letters in my postcard, save this postcard and call me later. Like just those actual words in the postcard sometimes makes a difference. And then somebody called me and was like, hey, I got your postcard. I saved it 2 months ago. So now I'm calling you. So That's a little tidbit out there for kind of helping people with their follow-up.
What's a setback you've had in your business that we won't call it a failure, but a learning lesson that maybe you can share with the listeners and help them avoid something like this in the future?
So if you're an investor, one thing that me and Marvin kind of dealt with is early in the year, we'll get a lot of things under contract or sales they weren't to sell, but maybe they got a higher offer a day or 2 or 3 days, and then they'll want to back out of the contract. So what we started to do is protect our interest and also the seller's interest in their contract by recording it and by putting a notice of intent on it. So everybody in the world knows that if you're trying to buy this property, we've already come to an agreement with the seller. And we've had situations like that happen, and Marvin specifically, where he got a call back, say, "Hey, I saw your notice of interest on this property. You know, what's going on?" So that's really been something that we dealt with as we grew. You know, once I started, especially, I wasn't doing enough volume that really became an issue. But as we grew, you know, some of those things start to arise.
That's great.
It makes sense because, you know, you get something under contract, the seller can will try to use that contract as leverage for somebody else to say, "Hey, I got this contract. Can you do better?" At least you're saving your time and energy by putting a notice of interest. That's great. Great advice.
I love it. So when we always have guests on, we always want to know, just you jump into real estate, we have all this chaos that you're finding a way to systemize your process, get yourself to a point that you feel stabilized until that next point of chaos comes up. What is each of yours big why for doing this?
For me, I don't know. That's something that people always talk about their why, like what motivates them. For me, it's just like, I enjoy it. Like, I don't know. To me, this is my life. Like it just is. So I don't know. I know what Jide is.
Why? That's probably one of the better whys I've ever heard. Jide's
why is really good. Wait for it.
My why is I like eating hamburgers, so I need a way to pay for my expensive. No, just joking. So, of course, my wife and going 25,000 into debt after first getting married 2 weeks after, and then I just had a son 4 months ago. So every time I look at him, I'm like, okay, it's time to get to work. It always motivates me to always do better because I'm trying to build something that I can pass on to him and say, hey, whether you want it or not, here's a business, here's a system that's working. And you can now have the freedom to choose what you want to do with your life. You don't have to go look for a job or a career. You can now kind of pursue your dreams. So having that why is really at the bottom of everything I do as a person. So it really helps motivate me. And that's what helps me keep calling sellers till they tell me to jump in the lake somewhere or something like that.
And even if they tell you to jump in the lake, you still call them, don't you, Jide?
And you still get a letter.
Yeah. Good. Happiness and family. We love it. Great wise guys. Thank you.
I think for Jide, like sometimes what I tell him, because like he's a nice guy, and he's much like a people person. And sometimes, especially now that he's had his kid, I'm like, right now this seller or this buyer or whomever is trying to take money out of your kid's mouth. So you decide whether or not you want that to happen. And like, that's kind of like his, I see that now. And it's like, that's a huge why. Like if I had a kid, that would definitely be my why.
That's a good thing to think about.
You see how we balance each other?
Mouth.
Yeah. I was just thinking Marvin must not have kids because all we're trying to do is keep our kids from eating random stuff off the floor. Like, how did you find a razor blade behind the sheetrock? Like, what?
And what are you doing on site in the first place?
Yeah, exactly. And 1 years old. Yeah. That's awesome, guys.
So for our listeners out there, what would you give to someone new to real estate as a vital piece for someone looking to start their journey? So say I'm a new investor. What's an actionable step that I can take right now?
So I guess I'll take this first. If I can say two things, the first thing I'll say is get determined. determine that for the next 2-3 years of your life, you're gonna pour everything into this, because there's gonna be times where you're gonna get discouraged. You have to just keep powering through. As far as action steps, the first thing I would do if I was a brand new investor, I had nowhere to start, is I would go out and network and find relationships, because when you find somebody who can help you through whatever process you're trying to go through, it literally cuts your learning curve in half. So when I first started, I went to every REIA in the DMV area. From Waldorf to Virginia, I was there. So that helped me kind of build that confidence as well. And those partnerships help you find deals as well that you don't have to market for right from the beginning.
It's great.
Nice. Good advice. That's Marvin?
Great. And for me, it's a lot of the same stuff. Like if you're going to be wishy-washy and you're going to mail something once, like just don't. Like save your money, go do something else. Like this isn't for you, because it's not easy. So like just don't start. Like go somewhere else. Because it sounds really cold, but at the end of the day, like it's in that person's best interest. Because if you've got, let's say $5,000 to spend on marketing, you're going to mail that once and that's it. And you're tapped out. Like you're better off saving that and doing something else, because too many people I see, they've got enough for a month or two and then that's it. And, I think it's just a huge waste. You've got to look at it in the long game. The other thing is kind of what Jide was saying, was networking. And to me, it's kind of, you already have a network of people. Like start talking to them about what it is that you're doing, get them kind of involved in it as well, and saying, hey, who do you know that's looking to sell a property? Who do you know that I could help, in some form or fashion related to, the property that they own.
Yeah, I remember just to add it too, says I remember one of the first things talking to Marvin, and I guess it's an action step off what he was saying. Just make a list of 100 people that you know, friends, family, associates, nephews you only see once at Thanksgiving, and call them, say, hey, I hope you know this, but I'm in real estate now. Are you looking to sell a house within the next 6 months, or do you know anybody that does? And that's how I got my first few leads, just calling those 100 people and then following up with them 3 months later, say, hey, are you trying to sell now? And it kind of introduced me into the business as well.
Nice.
Great action steps. Thank you, guys. That's awesome. So we always like to leave out here with some words to live by. And since Marvin, we keep putting you on the spot with these very, very deep questions, we might as well start with you.
So I've got quite a few sayings that Jide has now come to appreciate. One of them is at the beginning, which was time versus money. The other thing is how things start is how they finish. So if you're starting with a buyer and they're flaky, they're not putting EMD on time, they're not performing, that's how the rest of the transaction's going to go. So you need to make a decision whether you want to deal with that. Those are things that I consistently, think about. Time versus money, and how things start is how they finish.
That's great.
That's awesome advice. I just went through a few different scenarios in my head where that is absolutely true.
Correct.
Yep.
Spot on.
Wow. Spot on. Jide?
Yeah.
Wow, I got nothing for you guys. I think one thing that I live by is integrity. Is one, especially in the real estate business, you might think it's big, but what I began to realize is that when you start doing things, the circle is actually very small. So treat others how you like to be treated, because it does come around. You might lose a couple thousand here on the front end, but later on it'll multiply because people will remember, your reputation more than they remember kind of the transactions that you have. So make it a business, not a transactional thing in your particular market.
Well, thank you, guys. This has been great. And if people want to know, I guess, where can people reach you? And if they want to get on your buyers list maybe, or hear a little bit more about you, or just say hello, where's the best place to reach you guys?
They can either send, either myself or Jide an email at Maryland Cash Offers. So, yeah.
Maryland Cash Offers? Perfect.
Yep.
Cash Offers at Gmail, or?
Oh, so either Marvin at Maryland Cash Offers or Jide at Maryland Cash Offers. Yep.
Fair enough. That's
Perfect.
awesome. Cool,
Perfect.
guys. Well, we really appreciate you guys coming on the show today. Thank you so much. And
thank you for having us. It was a blast.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being on, Jide, Marvin. It's been amazing. Again, this is the REI Foundation podcast with Jason and Peely. Thank you again to Jide and Marvin, and thank you to our listeners out there. Have a good one.
Thanks for tuning into the REI Foundation podcast. Check back next time for more awesome tips and strategies to launch your new you in real estate.